Hello and welcome to my new podcast video. Couldn't be a podcast book. Sorry about that. I don't know why I said video, but today we're laying out the facts. Um, so it is a video. I'm being factually honest here. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I bit the inside of my lip last night. No, the inside of my cheek. What am I saying? I don't know anatomy at all. So last night I was having pasta for dinner. Love that. And I like slightly bit it at first. I was like, oh, that was a close one. And then I started eating again. And the second time around, I went, I like fully fucking munched on my fucking own cheek. Ugh, holy moly. So I'm having a smoothie for breakfast. Love that. If you want to know what's in my smoothie today, it's beans and toast. No, it's actually Milo, matcha, strawberries, blueberries, milk, and I think that's everything. It's very weird. It's very weird. Mm. Protein powder and creatine. So that's that. Anyway, so we're just going to start off with a little bit of an introduction to the video. I'm going to do chapters for the first time ever. So praise be, episode 21, we finally will figure out chapters. Yeah, my best friend was like mentioning it to me and she suggested it. And at first, you know me, I'm resistant to change. I like things to be the same as they always were. And then I was on my stream last week and I was like going on YouTube and we were like reacting to some videos and something popped up, someone else's podcast popped up as like a random, recommendation. And I clicked on it for fun because I was like, oh, this is gonna be funny. And then I got so annoyed because their whole podcast had no chapters in it, and I realized then and there that yeah, I think chapters are actually a godsend. So we're gonna get into chaptering, and today we're gonna talk about one very specific topic. Yes, we're not gonna be all over the place talking about uh, Doctor Disrespect and Donald Trump for some reason. No, we're gonna be talking about my anxiety journey. Parentheses so far. Now, the reason why I've done that is because I think that um I'm 26. I haven't been around for that long. Although some people think I've been around for ages. Um I'm saying so far because my journey with anxiety is going to span the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? So this is a so far type of deal and I just want to say I just want to talk about like what I've gone through in the past few years and how I sort of found out that I was dealing with anxiety and how I sort of reckoned with how it was influencing my daily life and how therapy and medication kind of helped it. And now that I'm off of therapy and medication, I'm going to try and go through the downsides and the upsides. So, like my support systems and advice I might give for someone struggling with anxiety, and just some sort of like general lore about me because I think that there is a lot of, well, it's probably pretty unavoidable, but there's a lot of childhood lore that probably heavily influenced my anxiety today. And you know what? It's probably going to get a bit personal. It's probably going to get a bit weird. Maybe not weird. Maybe weird's the wrong word. God, my parents are so weird. I don't know. Maybe you could describe it as that. I don't know. Lol. So yeah, we're just doing a quick little introduction. My name's Kate. Welcome to the Katieverse. This is my podcast that I have every Monday. I didn't do. Oh yeah, if you didn't see the community notice that I posted, which is probably a little bit of a niche little spot on YouTube, I did record last week's episode. I just didn't post it because I was dealing with a lot um after last weekend, and so when I did the podcast last week, I was like really, really not in a good place, and the vibes were not good. I was making a lot of comments and I think I was being very passive aggressive on my last podcast, so I decided this is not it. This is not it. Like I don't want to post something like this. It's like kind of weird. It was like very weird, you know. But I think on the upside, it actually helped me process a lot of like things that I was feeling. So I think it was good, and I'm glad that I'm able to say no to doing that kind of stuff. Like I'm glad that there was no pressure to post it, and it was just like I don't like this. I'm not going to post it, you know? So I think that was really good. Yeah, I think it was really good. Anyway, we're going to get into the first part of the video after that. And so I'm going to go through these in like a kind of like a question type thing. So the first question that I have is, when did you first realize that you were dealing with anxiety? Now, I don't know how many people are going to relate to this one because I feel like I was quite a late realizer of anxiety, if that makes sense. I think I wasn't aware that anxiety was even a thing until I was like 19, 20. I didn't realize that I had anxiety until a very, very late age. I think it's late anyway. It's late for me, certainly, especially considering that there were people around me who growing up that were also dealing with their own anxiety and had been diagnosed with anxiety and stuff. But when I presented symptoms of anxiety, it was always dismissed as like, that's not how you feel. La 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 la. I mean, obviously at the time, because I didn't have the vocabulary of like anxiety, um, I just would say stuff like, oh, I feel sick. When I was younger and I had to go to school and stuff, I would get like tummy pains and I genuinely thought I was sick. And then people would always be like okay, I say people, but I'm just gonna call it out right here. My mother would be like, you're not sick. You're making it up. You just don't want to go to school. And I feel like that's kind of a crazy opinion to have. Okay, I was sitting on a pillow, but it's like I need to be close to the mic. I'm too short for this dining chair. Um, Gosh, where was I? Yeah, so I think when I first realized I was dealing with anxiety was when I was a lot older. And I think that does have a lot to do with the fact that my mother specifically dismissed my feelings a lot. Um, she was dealing with her own psychological issues, and I think her better than anyone understands what anxiety is. She would always say like, oh, I can't come see you because I'm too anxious. I can't go out. I've got too bad of anxiety, right? Which is understandable, like totally. I get that. However, when I started dealing with my own issues of anxiety, I wasn't treated the same way that I treated her. And even if I was somehow treating her in a way that, like, oh, you should come see your kids, even if you're anxious, you should find a way to do it. Even if I was being some sort of way like that, I think that when you're the parent, it is kind of your job to try and figure these things out. That's what I think. But I understand people can make mistakes, and I think if you're looking from the outside and you don't have all the context, I know I'm already getting like kind of defensive about like my opinion on it, but um I think that when I first started having some anxiety triggers when I was like 13. Probably even before then though, I think is one of my formative years when I was in primary school. Um, which was like years like I want to say 10 to 12. Um, there would be times when my parents forgot to pick me up from school and they'd be like hours late. Or when you're a kid, like time moves so weirdly. So for me, it probably would have been like 4:30. School finished at like 3:05, I think, or 3 o'clock or some shit. So it would be like an hour and a half, maybe. I knew it was a long time because my parents would eventually remember when the teachers were leaving school, like, oh, that's the principal, bye. Like, and then I'd be like, huh, that's funny. Where are my parents? I kind of want to go home. Yeah, that was actually really horrible. And I think one of the reasons why I get so much anxiety about going to appointments or meeting people, that's, I think, a really big trigger, which we'll get into. So yeah, I guess I kind of fumbled that one. But when did you first realize you were dealing with anxiety? It was fucking old. I was old. And it's funny because I even went through psychology. I studied psychology for a while, and even then I didn't really put together the pieces that, like, oh, wow, generalized anxiety disorder. I never considered myself having GAD, and I still don't really know if I don't think that I have a generalized anxiety disorder. I think that, I mean, I guess I don't really know too much about it, but I've never been diagnosed, so I'm not going to say I have it. Yeah. So if you're I don't know, like, whatever age you find out about these things, I think the most important thing is that you just find out about it. It doesn't matter if you're too old or too young. There's no such thing. It's just try and figure it out. And I'm assuming people are probably watching this either because they want to find out more about me, in like, not a weird way, or you're curious about your own anxiety. Is when I'm feeling anxiety, and maybe this video will help you. So we got the second one was, how has anxiety affected your daily life? Oof. Geez, how hasn't it? Um, it's a lot better than it used to be, but I'll say some things of more recent years that I noticed was I would go on daily walks, my hot girl walks, and I had this really weird thing where, like, every time I'd cross the road, I would turn my head left, turn my head right, check to see if any cars are coming, and then I'd quickly walk across the road. And even if no cars were coming, oh my god, I'm gonna sound psycho for thinking this, but even if I saw no cars, I would still have it convinced in my head that, like, behind me, a car would just spawn out of nowhere and go whew and kill me. And I know it sounds so silly to say, and I even talked about it in therapy and stuff, and um yeah, that was a really, really bad symptom of my anxiety, where I knew it was insane to think about, but I still thought it. And even though I knew it was entirely, entirely impossible, um, I still couldn't stop thinking it. Ooh, excuse me. And, I never thought it when I would walk with people, go out. Like, if I was hanging out with people and we're walking, I wouldn't think like that at all. It was only when I was by myself that I would kind of think like that. So I think that kind of ties into some other things where I think a lot of my anxiety comes from not believing that I'm able to do the necessary things to keep myself safe, which is a very interesting and complicated part of, like, my psychology, I think, if I'm going to think about myself for a moment. I have a big problem, and this probably goes into some other question, but whatever. This is already disjointed anyway. I think that, yeah, a lot of my problem comes from not believing that I have what it takes to take care of myself. And that comes from a whole bunch of other childhood stuff. This belief that what I'm feeling, I'm not actually feeling, and I'm incapable of looking both ways across the road. I don't know. Because I do it. I'm good at it. I've actually saved my own life from doing it, because there are times when you're crossing, oh, like, there's like a green light for pedestrians, right? The little green man, they call it. The amount of times that I've gone to cross and people have just gone meow right through the pedestrian crossing illegally, I will add. Um, it's crazy, and I've saved my own life from doing that. So, you know what? I want to take a moment to thank me for actually being competent, and I need to start believing in myself and competency. So, click for that, I guess. All right, so to I guess continue talking about how it's affected my daily life. It's not just like the everyday walks and stuff. It's like uh hmm, everyday life. I mean, back when I used to go out, I would get really anxious about like if I was going to commute to university, uni, college, whatever. I'd get really anxious about making it on time. Um, so I'd stress out a lot about like public transport. Uh, I'd stress out a lot about yeah, just the timing of things, and that's been a pretty common thing for like everything. I get anxious whenever it comes to appointments, meeting up with people, and that's actually something I've been really working on lately. So, this is kind of what sparked the whole video idea because I have noticed some really good changes in myself since doing therapy. So, I feel like it's a little bit nicer of a video to make instead of just being like, "Hey, I have a lot of anxiety and I don't know what to do with it." I want to trigger hopefulness in people, you know what I'm saying? Other ways it's affected my daily life, I think it definitely has stopped me from living parts of my life that I would have maybe benefited from, you know, like seeing friends and stuff. You know, I think in the past it used to be a lot worse where I wouldn't even see my best friend because I was too anxious to go out. Kind of like my mom, I guess. So, yeah. And that wasn't good. I mean, I was going through a lot of things and I just didn't do anything about it at the time. I think I also didn't really know what to do. It's like, oh, I have anxiety. What do I even do about that? What do I do? I don't know, remove part of my brain? Good lord. Hey, maybe one day we'll come up with a solution to that. So yeah, that's kind of how my life has been affected by anxiety. It's been kind of like a lot of things and a lot of like new situations, but also just going out in general. So for the next question we have is what specific triggers or situations tend to exacerbate anxiety? So it's pretty normal, as my therapist described it, to have a healthy amount of anxiety. Um, the reason why they say it's like a healthy amount is that anxiety does exist for like a reason. It actually does have a purpose. And I think how it's like commonly explained is that our world around us has changed so drastically that when our brain hasn't changed or developed the same rate as the world around us, there's all sorts of things that make us have anxiety in like a really unhealthy way. But the healthy purpose of anxiety is to give us like a jolt of like stimulation or like arousal, not in like a sexual way, but like arousal. Like, say, for example, you're driving and you're just chatting with your friend and you're like, oh my god, the Olympics. And then suddenly someone's darting over all the lanes and you gotta slow down because they're about to crash into you. You get like a jolt of like anxiety or like stress hormones like cortisol to arousal your concentration and like your focus, and then it's supposed to go down once the situation's over, right? So for me, specific triggers or situations, we kind of did just go over it. It's like appointments, meeting up with people. I have like an intense fear of being late to things, and my therapist we specifically talked about this thing because it was a huge problem with me, and my therapist reckons it's because when I was a child, I think being on time to things was never really properly modeled for me, and that what was modeled to me was one parent was good at being to appointments, but they would always be significantly early because they were stressed, and it would always be the stress of like, we gotta go, like get your shoes on, we gotta go, and then we'd be waiting for like half an hour. And then the other one was, I think, the other parent who would forget to pick me up from school, you know? Yeah. So, and that's kind of modeled to me that like there's these two methods of doing things. Oh yeah, and the parent who forgot to pick me up would also just be just on time for things. And so that mixture of things doesn't really do a whole lot of good for me, you know? So I think that, yeah, for me, it wasn't really modeled to me how to be on time to things and be chill about it. And yeah, so that's something I've been working on. Specific triggers, I think the unknown. And, you know, it sucks because it's like, well, life is full of unknowns, right? We're always going to be going through the unknowns and the woes and the hows and stuff of life. You know, on the weekend I was doing some driving practice and with my best friend, and I was driving her to the shops and stuff, and I just loved it because it was so easy because she knew everything that was coming up, and she was able to explain to me like, oh, when we get over here we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and this is going to be what's happening. It's like she knew exactly everything to like help soothe my anxiety, I guess. But I find that it's very helpful to just know what's up ahead before things. But I know that that's not realistic for everything in life. But I think knowing about what triggers you and being prepared for that kind of stuff is probably at least something you can do, I guess. But what I've been thinking about lately is that I think part of why these triggers are so strong is because there's like this internal worry that when these situations arise, I'm not going to know what to do. I'm not going to know how to handle the situation, or I'm just going to have these really uncomfortable feelings that I don't know how to deal with. And I think that's actually where all the stress and anxiety comes from, is that I, I'm afraid to deal with how I'm going to be, which I think is a really interesting way of looking at it. And I've been trying to think of it more like that too, because I was thinking about with driving, I was thinking, look, if I end up doing this parking poorly, what's really going to happen? It's not actually going to be that bad. I can just readjust. Um, and just relax. Or thinking, oh, someone's like up my ass and I feel a lot of pressure. I'm going to be like, I'm following the law. I'm going the speed limit. If this person wants to do their own shit in their own time, they can do it when they get in front of me. But in the meantime, I'm the one in front, bitch. So I'm just trying to have more of like I'm trying to deal with it in a way where it's like, what's really at stake here, and trying to be more realistic of things like, oh, I think I can't deal with this. Actually, it turns out I can deal with this. It turns out I've dealt with a lot, and most things I think pretty much everything I think we can all deal with. It's just the uncomfortability of it that I think is very scary. You know, I think if you spend a lot of time in your life being uncomforted, then maybe it is kind of worrying to be put back in that kind of place, you know, psychologically, right? I don't know, but that's just kind of like what I was thinking about it. So I think it's a really nice way to challenge that perspective, I guess. So here we have the next question. How do you physically experience anxiety? For me, I experience it with like all throughout my sternum kind of area. It's like a rising like heat, or like butterflies, but it's not in my tummy, it's in my chest area, I guess. And yeah, it used to be butterflies in the tummy. Used to be. It's not anymore. Which is kind of interesting actually. Like, why has it changed? Why has excuse me. Why has the physicality of it changed? That's really quite interesting, I think. And I haven't really considered it up until now, but yeah. So I get it all up in here, and I think that's it actually. Yeah. Some people might experience like the physicality like a lot more than I do, but yeah, I get it over here, and I just make sure that when I'm feeling feeling it here, I just make sure to rub. Oh, it was a fly. I just make sure to rub the area because that's what my therapist told me to do. And I, I don't know if I'll remember to talk about it later, so I'll just talk about it now. But what my therapist said is that it really helps your body when you touch the area that's kind of being like, I don't know, physically anxious, because it helps sort of like soothe you. Because what was supposed to happen when you're younger was that you were supposed to be taught how to, um what's the word, like, it's not recuperate, um I'll say you were supposed to be taught how to stabilize your body's internal systems. I've forgotten all the terminology for it. I'm so sorry. And so, if you weren't taught how to regulate, there it is. If you weren't taught how to regulate your systems, your nervous system, then you kind of have to teach yourself to do it later on in life. So, yeah. So what I do now is I just make sure to like sort of touch the area and be like, you know what, I'm feeling this thing in my chest because of X, Y, and Z, and it's real, it's happening, and that's okay, and it's gonna pass. And I used to get like anxiety attacks, I think around 2020 during COVID. I'd actually get really worried before COVID even became like a full on thing. I remember back in like January being like, this is not going to be good. And people told me that I was wrong. So it hurts to be right sometimes, I guess. Anyway, yeah, so another thing I experienced was like when I go through like when I talk about my trauma and stuff, it'll manifest in my like neck and stuff. That's what I noticed a lot when I went to therapy. Every single time I went to therapy, I'd get like the most tense like neck and then shoulders and stuff, and it kind of moved around as I went through therapy, which was really interesting. And I never believed in the whole like the body stores trauma type of like conversation, but after going through therapy, I think I believe it. I believe it. But whatever, that's not the subject. Yeah, so physically experiencing it, I guess what I used to feel was like intense tummy like butterflies. It was really bad, actually. It was really, really, really bad. Like to the point where I thought I was sick. I actually had to get a. Oh, you know what's crazy is that I had such bad anxiety that showed itself in my tummy area that I actually had to get an ultrasound when I was like 14. I don't know how we ever okayed that. I don't know how that ever happened. But I would like to thank my doctors for listening to me and believing me. But I don't know I don't know how we missed anxiety like completely there and we went directly to ultrasound. Yeah, I don't know how that happened actually. The one thing I'm thinking of is like how that could have happened. I don't remember because it was so long ago. Wow. Is that my parents must have been like, she doesn't have anxiety. She doesn't have anxiety. Because there's no way the doctors went, yeah, let's do an ultrasound, bro. Like, I know doctors aren't like psychologists and stuff, but surely it's a common manifestation of anxiety to have like tummy butterflies. It's like, oh, okay, you get tummy butterflies. When do these occur? Before going to school, okay. Any other time they occur? No? Hmm. Yeah, let's do an ultrasound. Anyway, whatever. I mean, at least we ruled out some stuff with the ultrasound, and I got to experience an ultrasound very young. It was very awkward. Oh, yeah, because I think the whole time I was like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. And I'm shitting you not. My brain, my 14-year-old brain thought that the only possibility for me to having tummy aches was that I must have been like immaculately concepted on or something. Like Jesus must have put his, that's literally what I thought at my 14-year-old brain. I thought that something must have happened to me while I was either not conscious or something crazy. I had like, I don't know, but like that's what happens when you're a 14-year-old and you don't know anything about anything. You think that somehow your Jesus got you, Jesus is your baby daddy somehow. And like that's not really a thing that I thought like, oh yeah, for sure. I was like, I don't know what else it could be, I was like, I must be preggers or something. And oh yeah, another thing on that is that when you're really stressed out, it can either make your periods stop, can make it come earlier, last longer, and for me, it made it stop. So that's kind of why I kind of I put two and two together, and I thought I came up with the solution to what was happening. So yeah, yeah. Anyway, interesting. I really, yeah, I totally forgot about that whole thing to be honest. But yeah, you could say I was a no. I'm not gonna say I was a drama queen because it was more just like somehow nobody in my family and no doctors thought about anxiety. So it's really important that we fucking talk about this stuff right now so we can stop people from going, I don't know, unheard of with their anxiety. Okay. Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, that was the physical experiences. Now we're going to move on to what coping mechanisms or strategies have you found helpful? Okay, so I already told you about the feeling the area that feels anxiety. That's good. Stuff that you can do is like grounding exercises. It's been a really long time since I needed to do any, but I think grounding exercises are usually like you move like three parts of your body and you try to like think about like, oh, I'm moving my right thumb at the moment, and then it's like, oh, I'm moving my head side to side, and then you'd also be like moving like, I don't know, your big toe or something, and then you'd have to think about those three body parts moving. You can do like more subtle body parts or something and not look like kind of funny doing it. But that's one coping strategy. I think it's good because it helps you like focus on something that isn't the thing that's triggering you. But I'm telling you, I've always felt like the feeling of the area was like the best thing because it kind of feels like giving yourself a hug and giving yourself that physical reassurance that like what's happening is happening. Because I think the worst thing you can do is tell yourself that's not happening. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm okay. Nothing's happening. That's like the worst thing you can do. So yeah, I think other things could be trying to identify three things around you, like, oh, my awesome milkshake that's got the weirdest combination of flavors that I'm still drinking, I guess. Oh yeah, my chapstick. Woo, I love chapstick so much. Yay. Oh, my sunscreen that's also doubling as a microphone. Woohoo. Damn it, this is not good. It's like free product placement. Yikes. Oh well, I totally forgot that. Look, guys, this is my face sunscreen. Would I recommend it? I mean, I guess. I don't know. This isn't a sunscreen video, okay? Whatever. Coping mechanisms. What else could there be? Um, oh yeah, I think journaling is really good. Writing in a journal. That's been really good for me. I've started doing it again, and it's been quite helpful. I really enjoy it. And also like don't feel too bad if like your diary is just all of your bad experiences. Cause I don't know. I mean, I my hand cramps up a lot, so I really don't have time to I don't have the time nor the physical like prowess to write down every damn good thing that's happened. But I sure as shit have time to talk about the bad stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what diaries are for. They're for like helping you. It's not for like someone to read and be entertained. So it's kind of like this thing where a lot of women will say that they feel like whatever they're doing, they're kind of being perceived and observed. And I think that's kind of bleeding into like the diary entering. It's like, oh, what if someone in the future reads this and then thinks that my diary's boring? I need to write about other things. And it's like, no, you don't. Just write about what you feel like writing about. That's what I think. And if future generations for some reason ever read my diary, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I tried to put warnings in some of my diaries to be like, hey, it's kind of a lot in here. Ugh. Yeah, apart from that, I don't really know of any other coping mechanisms. I think talking about it can be good. Um, you know what's interesting? I guess this isn't really on topic of anxiety, but since doing the podcast, really good mechanism for like figuring out myself and processing things. And even if you don't upload it, maybe it would be helpful to just set up a camera and just talk to it and just be like, man, this sucked. It's kind of like a video diary, I guess. But I guess just make sure to, if you talk about something you don't want shared or something, just make sure to delete it afterwards or something. I don't know. But I do find it really helpful. Yeah, so I really do like the podcast format. I think it's awesome, and I think might benefit some people. Yeah, yeah. But that's kind of all I have for like coping strategies. I think on top of like therapy, therapy was a really big one. Oh, actually, you know what? I've got one more thing to mention with coping mechanisms. Back when I was doing therapy, my therapist told me that when there was like a significant situation that I was trying to process, I should write about it and write down like what the situation was and what kind of care I needed at that time, and talk about what I got instead and how I should have been treated. And when you do that, you'll feel like these, well, sometimes you'll feel like these feelings that take physical manifestation in your body. And so for me, like I said, it was always in my neck and stuff. So I'd be writing about this stuff that like triggered me. And I'd be like trying to self soothe myself by just touching the areas that were like getting super fucking painfully tense over it. And I found that was a very good way of attaching like a physical comfort sensation to something that was otherwise very like traumatic and stuff. That's what my therapist recommended to do, so that's what I did. And it was so helpful. Oh my god, it was great. So you know what? If anyone can't afford therapy, that's probably a really good way to do it. It's just I guess you won't have some of the I don't know, some of the thoughts that maybe help with therapy. Because like when I was doing therapy, it really helped to be told that I actually do matter and like my feelings matter, and to be told and affirmed that my whole life I went not being really cared for in like any way that's like appropriate. It was a really affirming feeling, you know, validating. And so I think because of that, I was able to really analyze situations that happen and be like, that shouldn't have happened, this shouldn't have happened, but it didn't happen. So here's what I needed, and now I'm gonna be that for myself. It was a very nice connection to make. Yeah. So that's another coping mechanism. All right. Moving on, we have 5 more questions left. So we've got, how has your perception of anxiety changed over time? Um, Not really something I've considered too much, I guess. Oh, you know what? I think my perception of anxiety used to be very much like, this is my enemy. This is just what I have. It's just what I got to deal with, and sucks to suck, I guess. That's how I used to feel about it. I used to be able to acknowledge that I was feeling anxious, but I didn't really have any real way of pinpointing what to do. So for the longest time, it really was just like my enemy. It was like my enemy. It was a thing that I hated, and yeah, I hated that for the longest time. My only relief from anxiety was just like staying home, staying home and not doing anything. So, yeah, I'd feel so guilty about things too, because I'd be like, I need to go out and do stuff, man. I need to live my life. I need to go out, man. And then I'd feel so guilty because it'd be like I genuinely want to see these people, but then my anxiety just makes me want to stay inside. And so I think over time, my perception has changed towards a more like understanding attitude towards myself and being more like, man, if I can't do this thing, I'm not going to do it and I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to be like, I know my limits, I know what I can and can't do. And me being unable to do something isn't like a reflection on me being like a bad person or something. It's just me having a rough time at the time of it. And so I'm trying to be a lot more caring to myself. And I think that's really helped. And I think because of that, knowing that I have myself to care for me, it's actually I think made me go out more. And I mean, I say more, but have I been going out more? I don't know. I mean, now I'm trying to think about it. Hmm. I don't know. Actually, to be honest, I haven't really been going out as much as I used to. But that hasn't been like due to anxiety, I don't think. I think it's just been more due to like I'm busy at the moment. I have the stream, I have my work. I mean, I guess what I've noticed now is that when I do go out, my anxiety is very, very minimal. So that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. It's nice to know that it's gotten better over time. It really is. I feel like, there's that regret of like, I wish I just did it sooner. But there's no guarantees that if I saw anyone else with my anxiety sooner, it would have had that much of a difference. There's no guarantees for that. And I think sometimes we're just not ready to do these things until we're ready. And where kind of sucks. Because I feel like maybe there's a lot of people who I'd still be friends with now if maybe I made more of an effort to go see them. But because of my anxiety, I just didn't. So yeah, I guess there's a bit of a regret there with that, but it's kind of like, what are you gonna do about it? If you have anxiety and it's stopping you from doing stuff and people don't really care to even ask, it's kind of like, well, did you really lose anything in the end? Or did you lose the idea of what you thought things were? So in that case, it's not really much of a loss, is it? What else about my perception of anxiety changed? Um, I think I'm a lot better at identifying it now and being like, oh shit, I know what this is. I know what this is. This is fine. I mean, I like this is fine in the circumstance of like, oh, this is okay. Wait, I actually understand what's going on with me. I think that's a really good thing to understand what is happening to you in the moment is really good. I used to have a lot of health anxiety too, which actually I think started to shift heavily once I started working on my anxiety. I started to learn that there are physical symptoms, like, when you feel like your heart's kind of like going a little bit in a way, and you start getting worried that you're having like a fucking heart attack, but it's just a panic attack. Um, yeah, I think I found that learning a lot more. Oh, wait, here. Okay, flossing. I love flossing my teeth, but I only started in 2020 because I couldn't see the dentist because of, COVID restrictions. And dude, I was scared of flossing out my teeth. What's that sound? What's that sound from SpongeBob? I think it's from SpongeBob. That's literally, I know. And I was so anxious about something that didn't even exist. That wasn't even possible. I don't know. Like, and I'm not the only person who's thought that, okay? And if you thought that too, I'm here to tell you I don't think that's actually possible to floss out your teeth unless you already have like teeth coming out of their sockets, bro. It's not happening. And so, how I stopped having that anxiety over it is I just looked up anatomy of teeth and saw that teeth are rooted in like these things or something, and that They literally don't, they don't just end at the gum. I don't know why. I always thought they just kind of like ended, you know? You can tell I wasn't really that well educated on the mouth and teeth. And so, after educating myself about that, I stopped having anxiety over it. I did. And the same has gone for a lot of things, like the symptoms of a panic attack. I understand them now and I understand what causes them, how to wait for it to pass over. And yeah, and now I don't have panic attacks anymore, you know? I really don't. To be fair, I think the panic attacks were very like unique to COVID and stuff, and I don't know, I don't think I really ever had panic attacks before then. I don't think so. I think I had one panic attack before starting 10th grade. Oh god. I don't want to go into that right now though. Okay, so yeah, my perception of anxiety has changed immensely over time, and I think I now have a more positive relationship with it, if you will. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. I hope I didn't ramble too much there. Um, what role have support systems played in your journey with anxiety? Okay, so this is kind of a big one. Hmm. I'm trying to think of how to go about saying it. So I guess when I was younger, my support systems were my parents, and they failed immensely to recognize my anxiety and to support me with it. Okay? And even when I became an adult and I would say, like, oh, I've got really bad anxiety, I don't want to hang out today, that was completely dismissed and invalidated even when I was an adult. And so I would say that my previous support systems had a very negative and damaging part to play with my own anxiety issues. So you would say that they were actually, in fact, not support systems. What's the opposite of a support system? A damage system? Oh my god, did we just come up with something new? I had damage systems in my life, and now I actually do have real support systems, which is my friends and obviously my partner. My partner had a huge role to play in supporting me with my therapy and my medication. Um, I was never made to feel like being medicated was like a bad thing or even bad for like us, because I know medication can kind of like fuck around with you a little bit, and I think there was a little bit of fuckery around with my brain, but it was never it was never in a way that was like that bad. So I think I just had a good experience, whereas some people are going to be different. But even then, I think the I don't know, I think the medication was also like a God, I think I'm like butcherizing like the idea of like what a support system is. I think it's supposed to be people in your life who like supported you, but I'm gonna say shout out to the medication. Shout out sertraline, because sertraline helped reduce my anxiety, so I was able to actually go to therapy. But my partner really did. My partner would take days off of work to take me to therapy, and that really helped a lot because, as you know, going to appointments and shit triggers my anxiety. And my partner being able to take me was incredibly helpful, but also I think being able to talk about it openly, being able to talk about my anxiety to my friends and my partner openly and be like actually like supported and listened to was actually really good for me. And so I think they played an immense role in helping me get to like where I am now. I think my therapist was also like incredibly understanding, which I know they should be, but like, they're not all like the best, I guess. So I think I got pretty lucky with that. Um, yeah, yeah. So I think I had some good people to help me out, but I don't think it's entirely necessary to have people support you. I think that if you're going through something and you feel like you don't have anyone, um, that really does suck. I think for the longest time, I didn't have anyone, and I think I got by a lot of the time just being with myself, if that makes sense. Being able to soothe myself, self, and I think the most important thing you can do is validate your own feelings and stop listening to fucking idiots who are trying to tell you how to feel. Because anyone who tries to tell you how to feel is a fucking moron. Is a fucking idiot. So yeah, that's what I think. I think that it can be important, but is it entirely necessary? I think you can do it on your own as well. That's kind of the beauty of it. But it does help to have people there. So I guess in a way, what you should take away from that is if there are people in your life who don't give a fuck about what you're going through, they're not your friends, they're not your family. If they're trying to tell you how you feel, again, they're not your friends, they're not your family. They're just some fucking idiot. Seriously. Okay, so what have been some of the biggest challenges in dealing with anxiety? Some of the biggest challenges dealing with anxiety. Um, I think in one case it was coming to terms with that the fact that I had anxiety. I think for the longest time kind of felt like I don't know, I was less than because I had it, and feeling just generally down about myself because I just sometimes I even still feel this way where I feel like I just can't do the things that everyone else seems to be able to do so well. You know, I know some people who have like their whole sporting thing, they go to work, they also go to school, they also have a relationship that's hard to work at as well. They have all these things going on in their lives and they just get up and they do it every single day, and I'm like, why can't I be like that? It's crazy. So I think one of the biggest challenges is just coming to terms with the fact that I'm not like someone else. There's an idea of who I would like to be. Dude, like there are so many fantasies of what I wish I could be as a person, and not being able to live up to those is really crummy because I mean, like, do I have to say why? It's because I have dreams of like what kind of person I could be, and I guess feeling like I can't do that, it's like, then who am I? Because I don't want to be anything but that, you know? So that's been a big challenge with dealing with anxiety. I think also just like the fact that sometimes it just feels like a limitation to like a lot of myself. Like I feel like, man, there's so many things I could be doing, but boy, anxiety, right? But another big challenge I think was just learning how to stick up for myself as well, in a way where it's like I'm not forcing myself to do things that is like triggering. Like I'm going to be my biggest advocate, and being an advocate for yourself is it's a hard role to get into if you have never done it before, like with anything, I guess. But like my whole life I've been an advocate for other people. I have been a protector of abusers in the past. Maybe I think I'll unpack that a little bit. So, my parents were obviously abusive, and my mother is someone who I protected a lot. You could say that I kind of took her side for a lot of things in life, and that's because I was essentially groomed from a very young age to be a apologist for bad behavior. And you know, that's not in any way like my fault or anything, and I think that maybe protecting abuse isn't a great way to say it, but more like I've enabled it. I've enabled abuse, and that's from growing up in it. So I think that that's kind of a challenge because when you have that role of enabling someone else's bad behavior, you kind of lose yourself in that you become, oh, what they call it in therapy is like enmeshment. You get enmeshed with like a parent figure or something, or just like it can happen to like anyone else, right? It doesn't have to be a parent necessarily, but it's when you become so attached to the hip to someone where like you don't know where one ends and the other begins in a way. I really wasn't prepared to talk about it, but I feel like I said kind of like something that sounded a little bit weird, so I thought I should elaborate on that. So, yeah, I think yeah, one of my biggest challenges was dealing with that, the fact that I had, sorry, my cat's distracting me. How does that tie into anxiety though? Why did I even bring that up? um yeah, I've forgotten why that was even relevant to the point, I guess. LOL. Sorry, that's just something we used to say back in the day. Lol. Was another bigger challenge with dealing with anxiety? I mean, it's pretty challenging when you say you feel something and people say, especially your parents say you're not feeling it. So that's a big challenge. But I already went through that, so I think that's about it for that question. If I think of anything else, maybe I'll mention it, but I can't think of anything else, to be honest. Alright, how do you handle setbacks or difficult periods when anxiety flares up? Um, I. Hey, what are you doing? Stop it! Sorry, my cats are fighting. So, something that I've begun to realize is that setbacks, or you know what, let's handle setbacks for a second. Setbacks are something that's bound to happen with a lot of things, and like it's just gonna happen. And so I've come to terms with the fact that they're kind of expected. You know, like a not too long ago, I had a driving experience that felt like a setback in the moment, but when I thought about it in like more of like a neutral way, I realized that there was actually a lot of things that I did really well that I haven't in the past. So I could clearly see that there's been improvements, and there's been improvements in my overall attitude, but sometimes there just are setbacks. There are going to be moments where you go, "Oh, I really bummed that one, didn't I?" But those are learning experiences too. Like you learn things from those experiences very very well probably too. I don't know. But yeah, so I think trying to not look at it as a setback and look at it as more like, you got to change your perspective. Different perspectives. So yeah, I don't really try to think of things as setbacks. Let me think. What else? I guess like setbacks in terms of anxiety. No, I don't. I guess that would be being invited out to something and not going. But I haven't really had that too much lately. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I think yeah, just changing your perspective is really important, but it's again, I say that as if that's easy. It's not easy. It just takes uh monitoring the way you feel or think about things and then trying to sort of, I don't think it's like intellectualizing your thoughts. I know that's been thrown around a few times, but it to me it's like going, okay, why do I feel this way? Or like why do I think this way? Not why do I feel, because I know why I feel things. It's because I'm human. But it's like, why do I think? Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it. And actually, another thing to bring up about my therapy is that my therapist mentioned that when we were growing up, there's like, we get these things called, oh, I'm really going to butcher this, aren't I? But it's kind of like narratives. And every single person in the world has a narrative that kind of plays back through their head throughout their life, especially if you don't address things in therapy. And everyone has a common thread of like that they put together for each situation that happens. So, for example, me, I have abandonment issues. So, when difficult situations come up, there's that common narrative of like, I'm going to be abandoned or I'm not really loved or cared for. That's like what it used to be like. And that was my common narrative. It's the thing that I tied to every bad thing that happened to me. And apparently everyone does this to some degree or something. I don't entirely remember why or how this was said, but it was a really interesting thing, and I think since I've learned about that, I've kind of seen with some people, I think everyone has a common. She described it as like a common thread. I think it's just like a narrative, but I don't mean to say that as in like it's all in your head type of narrative. It's not fiction. It's just that there's some common theme that really stuck with you, and that's how you relate to a lot of things in the world. I think that's kind of how it was. I'm not really. Correct me if I'm wrong, therapist. Please do. I'm open up to criticisms and corrections because that might not be correct. But yeah, so I noticed that within myself. And how does this. I keep finding, like, how am I relating these things? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there, I guess. Difficult periods when anxiety flares up. Hmm. Um, yeah, I think like at the same, it's like kind of the same for everything. I give myself grace. I say to myself, I'm going through a difficult period at the moment. And I don't expect myself to be like fucking superwoman at the moment. I'm feeling how I'm feeling, and I know that I'm gonna come back from this. I just need to take some time for myself, and I've been really good at doing that. Really, really good at that. And that's like the one big thing that I really needed to start doing for myself, which was just being kind to myself. I don't know how I lived so long without being nice to myself. It's like, um, it's the same with like exercise and stuff. Like, I used to get really anxious if I didn't do my regular exercise and stuff because I'd just be like, I'm gonna lose everything I worked for. I'm gonna, I'm just gonna stop being like fit. I'm gonna start dying when I go up the stairs. I like bullied myself into like doing things, and then in turn that would just make me less and less motivated. And so what I've noticed since doing my therapy, um, dude, I have been sticking to a schedule, like, well, not like a schedule, but I've been sticking to my workout. Like there's no tomorrow. Like, I haven't worked out for like a few days and stuff, and I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it because I'm gonna get to it. Either if it's tonight or like tomorrow, I'm not worried about it. Or even like fucking like Wednesday, because it's Monday right now. Um, yeah, I just don't worry about things anymore. God, that sounds so like, yeah, I just don't worry about things anymore, and I just stopped having anxiety. One thing I did try telling myself anxiety didn't exist. I tried to do that. The Andrew Tate method. Just for like science. It didn't work. Yeah, I'd have like minute moments of anxiety. I'd be like, I'm not feeling anxious. What the hell? I'd be like, anxious isn't real. Anxiety's not real. And then I'd have a real situation to be anxious about, and it would not work. So, don't bother trying, I would say. Just unfortunately, I think the only thing you can do is the hard thing, and that's coming to terms with things, dealing with things. Um, if you can't afford a therapist, then I like there are ways that you can deal with a lot of your problems without therapy. There's actually a lot of free therapy in TikTok and stuff, which is actually how I got started with my therapy journey. Um, so that was really useful, but I've got to say, if you can afford therapy, you really should give it a go. Like, just be open minded about it. Seriously, like, what do you have to lose? I guess, like, a couple $100. Look, don't do therapy unless you're, like, actually thinking, yeah, I'm ready to face a lot of things. Because I think everyone could do with a bit of therapy, but the problem is not everyone thinks the same way. So if you don't think you need it, then don't bother with it, but you might one day find out that you might one day look back and be like, you know what? I actually should have done therapy. But I don't know. I think it just works only if you're open to it. And that's my opinion about that. Wow, I really did ramble. And we have one more question left. I totally got off topic. I'm so sorry. Alrighty. Alright. What advice would you give someone who's struggling with anxiety? Well, if that hasn't been this whole podcast, I don't know, but let me reiterate. So, if you're struggling with anxiety, fix it. If you're depressed, fix that too. I'm joking, okay? Um, Listen, there's a lot of self-helpful things you can do that doesn't require paying a few $1 million to see a therapist, because let's be real, it costs about that these days. Um, the cool thing for me, I live in Australia, so I was able to get, I think, 5 sessions at a discount or something. So if you go to your general doctor in Australia, you can be like, hey, I'm dealing with anxiety and depression. Can I get a referral to see a therapist? And you know what they used to do is the doctor used to be like, hey, we got a place, we'll recommend them. What I had to do was I actually had to do my own research, find my own place, see if they took GP referrals, and my doctor recommended that you find one that works with the same schedule as you. So it's like, if you can't do Fridays, don't do one that only does Fridays, you know? Or if you finish work at like midnight, don't find a therapist who only works from 1 to 4 p.m. Basic advice, I guess. Um, what else was there? Um, yeah, and then you have to just go. I think you find out who you want to see, and then you go back to your GP, or you could have it prepared already, maybe. Um, yeah, it might be better if you have it prepared before you see him, because what I had to do was I had to see my GP, and then I had to be like, oh, okay. And then I had to go back to them to be like, here's my place I want to go to. And then they put in all the information, they send things over to them. And then I think either they contact you, like the therapist office will contact you, or you contact them and be like, oh yeah, I had to contact them and I was like, hey, I am a prospective new client. And I actually had ChatGPT write part of the email because I wasn't sure what to send. I was like, prospective new client? Question mark. Yeah, so that's a really the process that I went through for finding a therapist. I did a lot of research. I sifted through a lot of people, and yeah, so I'd just say like do the best that you can. Of course, the problem with these things is that I think is that whenever you look at like a doctor's office or like a therapist's office, they'll be like, here's our team, and our team are like dedicated to bringing warmth, listening, and it's like you kind of have to say that when you're talking about therapists. So it's like there really is only so much research you can do, and at the end of the day, you kind of just have to choose one and be like, yeah. I just chose the one that I vibed the most with, and they ended up being really good. So, you know, um, yeah. So definitely go to therapy if you can, and if you're open to it. I did medication, so I went on sertraline for I think like a year. I was like on sertraline for like a year or something, and I was on 25 milligrams every morning. I'd take half a pill of sertraline, and I noticed a difference like immediately. And I also just had a really good experience with it. It was really good for me, and I think partly the sertraline was just really good in helping me actually make the move to therapy. So that's why I would kind of I think doing medication plus therapy is like the strongest combo. It's like a combo, yeah. You're buffed and then you're going to therapy, which is like you can win any team fight with buffs. I'll put in video game terms. So yeah, you drink like the strength potion before you fight the Ender Dragon because you can't just raw dog the Ender Dragon. Okay. Um but that being said, I do want to give a disclaimer. Not medical advice, I'm not a doctor. I'm just some bitch on the internet and everyone's going to react differently. I don't want you to hear how good my experience was and then think like that's the bar because I've heard a lot of people who didn't have uh good times with sertraline. But the wonderful thing, and this is how my doctor explained it, the wonderful thing is that if something doesn't work for you, there are so many different medications you can try. So many different medications that are able to be tried and that the likelihood of you finding something that will work for you is not too bad. It's not too bad. Like something's out there that's going to work for you is kind of how I was told. And but I'm not saying you have to do it with medication, but I I I don't think I was that adverse to the idea of being medicated, but I definitely resent people who try to make it out like it's a pathetic thing. I highly, highly, highly resent that opinion. I think it's completely incorrect. The reason why people go on antidepressants, as my doctor explained it to me, is that you'll find yourself at some point, maybe, in this horrible, vicious cycle of having no energy, you have no structure because you haven't been able to do anything because you're too depressed to get out of bed. And it is not an issue of mindset because listen, your mindset obviously you want to get out of bed and do things. No one wants to stay in bed all day and fucking rot in bed. No one wants to be doing that. Like, are you kidding me? Like, who the fuck thinks that that's something people want to do? People will say, "I just want to be in bed all day," and people will think that that's literal. What people mean is that like this is what I need at the moment because I can't do anything else. And it's a very valid place to be in. And dude, I was in that position. I was like, this was before I started streaming. I was just in bed and I barely even got up to go to the bathroom. I barely even got up to get water. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was just lying in bed watching Euphoria, thinking, what am I doing with my life? Um, and it all came from like these intense pressures to like do things. And I think the last thing you want to be doing to someone who's depressed is like pressuring them to go to the gym. I'm sorry, but like, bro, the gym is not fucking therapy, dude. I'm sorry. And I like gymming it up, man. And look at me now. I was like I was like mad depressed, mad anxious, mad sad, and now I'm sticking to a regular workout schedule, which is great. I feel great after working out. Um, I'm tackling the things that felt impossible before, like driving. I'm doing a lot more driving now than I used to, and I'm approaching situations that otherwise before would have freaked me the fuck out. But because I don't know, because I've been through therapy and medication, I've had it. I think the medication also gave me like a taste of what life would be like not as anxious. And you know what the medication was also really good for? As soon as I started taking it, I was able to do laundry again. I was able to do my laundry. I was able to start taking care of myself, you know? Like the first thing I noticed was that laundry was once again easy. I could do it and I could enjoy doing it. And so, yeah, I just think that anyone who tells you that like you're weak for taking medication for like a year and then going on like I'm not on it anymore. I don't need it anymore. But it's nice to know that if I ever fall into that hole again, it's there and it works for me. The withdrawals fucking sucked, by the way, but uh dude, I can't imagine what's like withdrawing from medication you've been on for more than a year because I was on such a low dose for like a year, and dude, the withdrawals sucked, man. It sucked. I don't know. But would I do it again? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would do it again within a heartbeat, because what I got out of it was so life changing for me. And yeah, I really just gotta say to people, like, dude, if this is what you need, this is what you need. Like, there's no shame in that. And a lot of people like to equalize it to, like, oh, well, we never needed it when we were like cave people in the cave times. And it's like, yeah, well, cave people in the cave times didn't need to deal with the shit we got to deal with today. You think cave people had tax systems? Unga bunga, give me two fucking, I don't know, give me some fucking berries for cave rent. Hmm? That wasn't happening. I don't think, anyway. A lot of assumptions about the cave people today. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, like, there's just no comparison, right? And if someone says, like, oh, I was able to fix my depression by just going to the gym, it's like, then you weren't fucking depressed, dude. I mean, not to minimize your feelings or invalidate you, but oh god, I know it's kind of controversial, but it's like, hardcore depression, I don't think is just solved by going to the gym. I think maybe you were sad, and that's valid, but yeah, it's like if I said, like, oh man, I used to have anxiety, and then, like, I just stopped having anxiety, dude. It was great. Okay, then you didn't have anxiety. Or at least not, like, I don't know. What, you know what, actually, I want to look up for a second. What is generalized anxiety disorder? Okay, what are the symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder? Because I don't know, actually. So it's persistent and excessive worry about various aspects of daily life. Oh, dude, that kind of sounds like me a little bit. Well, how I used to be. But then I just went to the gym, dude. Excessive worrying, persistent and uncontrollable worry about a variety of topics such as work, health, family, or daily life situations, even when there is no apparent reason for concern. Yeah, one of the things I learned in psychology is that things become a problem when they start. No, it wasn't psychology, it was health and human development. When something starts to impact your daily, everyday life, that's when you have to see, like, a doctor. Like, you got to. Restlessness or feeling on edge. So, fidgety, constantly keyed up or unable to relax. Irritability, increased sensitivity and irritability. Often feeling overwhelmed by constant worry. Difficulty concentrating, feeling overwhelmed. Chronic nervousness. And the physical symptoms are fatigue, muscle tension, sleep disturbances. Dude, sleep disturbances was so fucking high on my list of problems. And I get to sleep so easy now. It's actually one of the best things that's happened out of all of it. My sleep is so much better. I can't believe how many years I it took me ages to get to sleep, because I would just be up all night thinking, tossing and turning and just thinking and thinking and thinking. And I genuinely think it was a result of just unprocessed trauma, you know? Because you keep thinking about the same situations over and over again. What could I have done differently? Why did this happen? You know? But then going through therapy, I don't do that anymore. Which is really crazy, because I thought that was just how I was as a person. We got sweating and trembling, nausea, gastrointestinal issues, headaches, rapid heart rate, palpitations, dizziness, lightheadedness. Then we have behavioral symptoms, avoidance. Yes, that was me, avoidance. It's interesting though. I feel avoidant about some very specific things, but then there's other things that I would still do, even though, like, other people I know would be terrified to do those things. It just highlights how different we are as, like, each and every person, you know? Like, I get so anxious about driving and stuff, but then, um, yeah, I get really anxious at driving, and My best friend, I think, gets more anxious doing like, I don't know, a bit of socializing in some ways. Not in every aspect, but in some. And for me, socializing is like, heh, I guess. I don't know. I mean, is socializing. I think I just hate socializing in groups. Yeah. I hate group dynamics. I prefer like low key, small things. Over planning or perfectionism, that's me. Oh, that's me. Oh, yeah. Procrastination. Delaying tasks or decisions due to fear. Yeah, yeah. I feel like I don't relate to a lot of it, so I definitely don't think I have GAD. But anyway, I'm not a doctor. This isn't like me trying to diagnose anything. I'm just going through everything. Wow. Okay. Well, there we have it. I guess 1 hour 20 minutes. I'm gonna do the chapters for this video. Lol. So I've been writing that down as I go. Okay. Outro. So I just had to write outro. Okay, guys. Guess what? We're doing the outro now. Look, I hope this video was good, beneficial, helpful even, relatable. I would love to be relatable. Actually, that's kind of. I don't want people to have anxiety, so please don't say it's relatable. um, yeah, listen, like, it is what it is, right? We got a bit personal, which I actually like going personal. I think, I like sharing parts of my life. I do. Because I think that if I can at least help someone else understand their life a little bit better, I appreciate that. But it's also kind of like therapeutical for me. And look, I have some like I don't know if I'd say well, maybe it is unresolved issues, but I have some unresolved issues, and unfortunately they're never going to be resolved. But I think that's kind of just life. That's kind of just life. So, I have my flaws. The people around me had their flaws too, but I don't want to make this video to try and dogpile on anyone specifically. I think that whether you're a youngin or a parent, maybe you learn something on how to deal with this stuff. And you know what? Dealing with a loved one who's probably going through this is probably bringing its own unique set of issues and challenges. And, I think the best thing that you can do, guys, is just be kind to those around you, be patient, and be patient for yourself if you're going through this. The best thing I did for myself, and I'm going to reiterate it right now, love love yourself. Just be nice to yourself, like seriously, genuinely. Like, and I know everyone says this, but as someone who used to be like, yeah, I'm good with myself, I really wasn't. I really wasn't. You got to recognize when you're not being nice to yourself. That's why I stopped calling myself a fucking. Whenever I make a mistake on stream, I'd be like, "Oh, you fucking idiot, you fucking idiot moron." But I stopped doing that and I started calling myself a silly goose because I think if you joke about those kind of things, it kind of manifests in a not so good way. All right, well, that was the episode. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to. No one's forcing you. Sorry, that was my way of trying to force someone to do something. Sorry. All right. I will be going now and enjoying the rest of my day. Yeah. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day too. Have a good sleep. Have a good time. And I will see you next week. All right. Goodbye.